Have you been looking for a trusted long-term storable food company? We have a solution for you. Simply Clean Foods is dedicated to providing the best quality food you can buy next to fresh from a farmer's market. Our line of resealable fruits, vegetables, and meats are suitable for everyday use, and you won't have to worry about throwing away valuable groceries ever again. Our food is completely GMO-free, and our stringent quality controls, plus testing for heavy metals, makes us unique in the storable foods market. Simply Clean Foods' primary focus is to bring clean food to people all around the world and change the way we look at freeze-dried food in our daily cooking. When you purchase from simplycleanfoods.net, not only will you be receiving high-quality food, but you will also be supporting veterans in need across the country and those who are affected by natural disasters. Right now, Amazon Prime members will receive fast 2-day shipping. Go to simplycleanfoods.net. That's simplycleanfoods.net. But do it today.
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, putting America first, second, and third. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
Welcome to our show today. It is Friday, April 30th, 2021. Thank goodness it's Friday. Thank goodness it's Friday. Thank goodness it's Friday. Also, the last day of the month tomorrow is May Day. And we've got a lot to talk about today. A lot of small news items, nothing major. And as usual, we're going to do news until I run out of news. And then we're going to open up the phone lines for your comments, questions, observations, and opinions. Mike is in our control room, twiddling the dials and keeping us out of trouble, and let's get right on into it. Now, you'll probably remember earlier in the week I was talking about how we had a lot of rain and a little bit of thunder and lightning here, and we were on the north edge of this major storm, and we got really lucky up here that that's all we got, because down in Oklahoma and Texas, they had severe hail, and we're talking hailstones the size of baseballs just pouring on down, going through roofs. I saw a picture of a car, looked like it had been hit with a giant shotgun, and there were 38 reports of severe hail across Texas and Oklahoma, including near San Antonio, Fort Worth, and Oklahoma City. And the hail was so big and had so much force, it came through the roofing areas and even sheetrock on interior walls. So that's major, major stuff. Gosh darn that human-caused global warming anyway. All righty, getting on over to Maricopa County, the audit director, Ken Bennett, is saying that the election audit is on track to be done by the deadline. And the Democrats have been trying to find some way to delay it or call it off because they know that the lease arrangement with that sporting venue is due to expire on the 15th of next month, basically 2 weeks from now. So none of that has worked, and they're saying it will be done. They're examining the ballots. They're examining the voting machines, and the corporate media is going crazy saying there's no truth to stories. They're finding election irregularities, and the Democrats are definitely in a panic. In fact, 3 lawfare groups have basically approached the Department of Justice to say simply shut down the Maricopa County Forensic Audit. And this is the Brennan Center, Protect Democracy, and the Leadership Conference. They all signed a letter to the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice saying just shut this whole thing down. At this point, I almost feel like we need to take inspiration from the playbook of Black Lives Matter and say that if the Maricopa audit is blocked, stopped, interfered with, or altered, or censored in any way, that we're going to start burning cities down, because it seems to work for Black Lives Matter to get guilty verdicts and trials and things like that. And I really think if anything happens to this audit, there really needs to be a public outcry. And again, politics is perception. And just looking at how hard all these democratic, liberal individuals and organizations are trying to stop this thing, it's like having a giant neon sign glued to their forehead saying guilty, 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 over and over and over again. Up in Windham, New Hampshire, yesterday we were talking about the revelation that the city officials had chosen an organization called Verified Voting for their forensic audit of the voting machines and ballots, and there was a huge backlash because Verified Voting is a far-left organization that had already publicly attacked the Maricopa audit. So the Windham selectmen are calling on city officials to reconsider this decision and possibly go with another group for the forensic audit. So they're trying to fight back up there. Florida has now joined with Georgia in passing new election laws to guardrail against fraud following the 2020 election. And so yesterday, Florida's legislature passed a bill, makes it harder to access drop boxes and mail-in ballots. And this is all about, preventing election fraud next year during the 2022 elections. Story coming on out of MSN.com, no less. Trump, of course, is out there waiting to see what happens with the Arizona ballot audit, and actually a lot of people are. And now we're starting to hear another argument against it, saying that if this Arizona audit is allowed to continue, there will be partisan vote counts in all future elections. By that, they mean partisan vote recounts and audits. But that won't happen if the nation adopts an honest, fair, and verifiable election system. And our current election system, it is a joke. It is designed to make fraud very easy to commit and very hard to detect, and we need the exact reverse, which is why I wrote that article, How to Have Honest Elections, which is on the main page of whatreallyhappened.com, right at the very top, right underneath that hideously outdated portrait of myself. It's really about crowdsourcing the accuracy and the count and the tabulation. No central counting centers, and it's a good system. I'm not saying it's 100% foolproof, but it's going to make vote fraud much more difficult to commit and much, much easier to see. And that's really what we need going into the future. Obviously, if the Arizona audit does conclude that there was a huge number of fraudulent votes, this is going to put additional pressure on the other swing states to conduct audits of their votes as their election results as well. And this raises a real interesting constitutional question because how do you deal with an occupant in the Oval Office who stole that position? Now, it's not the first time it's happened in U.S. history, but this is the first time it's happened where the American people know what happened. And obviously there has to be something done. And I forget who it was predicting that Trump would be back in the White House by August, but it's almost starting to look like that is within the realm of possibility. Okay, getting back to Biden's speech before Congress, compared to Donald Trump's first State of the Union, he had very few, very small audience. And ratings showed that 11.6 million watched Biden's speech compared to 45 million who watched Trump's first address to Congress back in 2018. And Biden barely managed to beat the viewership for this year's Oscars. Okay, CNN came out with a poll claiming that 85% of respondents approved of Biden's speech. That's already been blown because it turns out they only interviewed 169 Republicans out of a total of 1,000 viewers who were polled. So we're looking at, 800 some odd Democrats versus 169 Republicans. Even Snopes.com is saying that CBS's claim is junk. And we know Snopes' bias in these things, but it was that obvious a rigging by the corporate media here. Now, Joe Biden is claiming that he had absolutely no idea that Rudy Giuliani's home and office were going to be raided, and he claims the Department of Justice was far more politicized under Trump after Giuliani's son said the FBI ignored evidence on Hunter Biden, and that was one of the oddities of the raid on Rudy's office. They took absolutely everything except the copies of the hard drives from Hunter Biden's laptop. And I think the reason for that is obvious, is because once it's known those hard drives are in the FBI's possession, the pressure would be on them to say, okay, what's on those hard drives and can it be prosecuted? Should it be prosecuted? We know that there's evidence of underage sex on those drives, drug use, plus all the information related to shady dealings with Ukraine and China. So the FBI didn't want to touch those. Those are apparently the third rail of contemporary politics right now. Story coming on out of Cuz Blue, Michael Cohen is saying that Rudy Giuliani is an idiot and is likely to start talking to the feds about what he did for Trump as part of a plea deal to avoid a long sentence. And maybe not. Rudy, we know that he can be very shady. We know that from 9/11. Donald Trump is out there talking about the seizure of Rudy Giuliani's materials from his apartment and business, saying it's a very, very unfair situation. Now, Giuliani himself is saying all of this is illegal, that the Department of Justice secretly went into his iCloud account back in 2019 and invaded attorney-client privilege because they were in the middle of defending against the phony impeachment. So whatever comes out of these raids on Giuliani, it's going to be in the courts for a long, long bit of time. Okay, Republican Senator Tim Scott, who is now considered the GOP's new star, he delivered a response to Joe Biden's first address. He slammed the president for empty platitudes and not finding common ground. Those are both accurate. And so Tim Scott is out there, and he's the new Republican darling, according to the GOP elites who do not want to support Trump in 2024. Another story, this one out of Zero Hedge. Martin Armstrong is warning that there will be an election panic in 2022 and says it's likely to turn violent. And he's got a real point there because of what happened in November 2020. Nobody will accept any election results in 2022 at face value. And you're going to have people in the streets rioting and protesting because this or that candidate didn't win. Another story, this one coming out of Zero Hedge, commenting on the fact that the corporate media will never regain the public's trust. There's an old saying that trust arrives on foot but departs on horseback, and that's exactly what's happening. This year is the first time ever that trust in the corporate news media dropped below 50% in the United States. This is a trend that's been ongoing for years. And, of course, mass media is divided on where to assign the blame for the plummet in public opinion of their work. Some are trying to blame it on Russia. Others are blaming it on Donald Trump. And others are blaming it on the internet and the independent media. And The Washington Post is saying it's the people themselves because they don't share our values. I have a simpler explanation. People don't trust the corporate media because the corporate media keeps lying to us. Remember Saddam's nuclear weapons? Good example there, one of many. Article coming out again of Zero Hedge calling for the need to regulate big tech to protect the people from pernicious manipulation. And they're saying the time has come to regulate big tech to avoid increasingly monopolistic behavior and protect the population from the manipulation of big data. It's as much an argument about the role of the state as it is about the success of companies. There will be winners and there will be losers. And we've all seen how big tech has grown way too big for its britches. They're censoring people left and right. YouTube even blocked this show a couple of weeks ago over vaccine information. Facebook has now banned Russia Today's digital content project Redfish after they put up posts marking the end of Mussolini's dictatorship and Holocaust Memorial Day. Now, I'm not sure why they would be concerned about that, but the Redfish account was suspended earlier today after a recent post that criticized fascism. And maybe that was what got them into trouble because all of a sudden we're being told that, fascism isn't such a bad thing to have here. Okay, getting on to more domestic politics, there's an interesting article, again from Zero Hedge, saying that we don't really have a problem with systemic racism. The problem is our police officers are poorly trained. And we have commented in times past about this very alarming trend to have American civilian police forces trained by these Israeli security companies who have a tendency to train police officers to treat the American people the way the IDF treats the Palestinians. And that really doesn't seem to work. And there have been some well-publicized incidents like Derek Chauvin, and the other one is Nicholas Reardon, who shot Ma'Khia Bryant, who was trying to stab another person at the time. And, the media is out there saying, oh, this is all white supremacy because these people that were killed were black. Well, these people who were black were committing crimes. And that is something that nobody wants to talk about, but it is a reality. Up in Seattle, they have lost 246 police officers since last year because of the Democrats' war on police. And I had another article that we put on the website earlier today about another police officer who just committed suicide in their home because they really couldn't deal with the pressure and the social derision that's coming on down. Over in Portland, the Anarchist Collective has announced plans to escalate the violence in the war with Mayor Ted Wheeler. Now, Portland's liberal establishment is trying to send a message to Antifa, we don't need you anymore. It's kind of like Hitler and the brown shirts. Earlier this week, Mayor Ted Wheeler, previously known for his tacit support for the anarchist violence during the Trump era, made a decisively Trumpian threat to unmask and ruthlessly prosecute the city's anarchists. He put out a call for the public to try and identify the perpetrators. And rioting, for the most part, has died down across the country, but Portland remains as violent and chaotic as ever as it nears reopening. Okay. Right. Ashley Babbitt's family has filed a lawsuit against the Capitol Police. They are seeking $10 million in damages. And this came more than 2 weeks after the Justice Department said it would not file criminal charges against the still unnamed officer who shot and killed Babbitt. Terrell Roberts, who's an attorney for the Babbitt family, told CNBC yesterday that it had not been determined when or in which court the civil lawsuit against the Capitol Police would be filed. I hope they win. I think they should have asked for $30 million. All right. Up in New York, the New York City Police Department has canceled their contract with Boston Dynamic for the robot police dog. And there had been a very negative reaction to the robot dog. There were accusations that it was being deployed in predominantly black neighborhoods. And, they called it the Digidog. And they had a $94,000 contract with Boston Dynamics, which has now been canceled. So the Digidog has been put down, and people are celebrating. Okay, let's talk a little bit about COVID. There's an interesting little statistic. This came out from the Rumble video that we put on whatreallyhappened.com. According to Dr. Harvey Risch, 60% of all new COVID patients have been vaccinated. We got to take a break for commercials, and we will be right back.
Hello, I'm Dr. Leonard Horowitz. I was right 30 years ago in warning the world about threatening lab virus outbreaks, AIDS, and Ebola. I was right 20 years ago when FBI Director Robert Mueller made me a suspect in the anthrax mailings because I warned the Bureau before the CIA's biocrime and Cipro sales psyops happened. I was right about COVID-19 being an AIDS-laced mutagen plan to resurge this fall to excuse officials' profitable depopulation globalization agendas. And I was right about the only safeguards being antioxidants and holy spiritual sustenance. Vitamin C, D, zinc, chlorophyll, oxygen, and oxysilver especially transmits the frequency resonance to neutralize the expanded function bioweapon. Oxysilver is a double superconductor of the healing power of love. It is the first nutraceutical invented to amplify prayer power and the faithful, loving intention of your heart. Buy, try, and stockpile Oxysilver through HealthyWorldStore.com.
As a listener of RBN, you're surely concerned about being informed and being ready for whatever may come. Please consider the following questionnaire as a soul-jarring wake-up call. If you answer no to more than 2 of these following questions, you probably aren't going to make it through any major disruption in our country. The questions were compiled by people that have been there. Are you really ready? Do you own your own firearm for the primary defense and protection of you and your loved ones? Have you ever been professionally trained to stand against life-threatening behavior? Have you ever practiced enough to fire 500 rounds during a 2 to 4 day time frame, day and night? Can you load, unload, fire, and clear a jam in total darkness? Have all the adults in your household been professionally trained? Are you, life and death, comfortable with your abilities with pistol, revolver, shotgun, and rifle? Are you aware that everything that you do to prepare for an emergency is a waste of time, money, and energy? If you haven't honed your abilities to their highest level to protect and keep what you have, do you have the repair parts that will most likely be needed for each of your firearm? And do you have the ability to install those parts? Could you completely clean every firearm you own? Are you aware that your body won't go where your mind hasn't been? In other words, without proper training, followed by regular practice, you probably will not win a gunfight. Well, how did you measure up? Take the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to start correcting your deficiencies by receiving your Commander Lifetime Membership with Front Sight Firearms Training Facility. A one-time donation to RBN for $500 will give you a Commander Lifetime Membership at Front Sight as a tremendously huge thank you bonus. See details on RBN's webpage to make it happen. The clock is ticking. You had better be ready before it happens.
Born in the city with a silver spoon, great-grandson of the oil tycoon, raised by wolves, thinks he owns the moon, socialist banker to the one-world goons, Davy Rockefeller, chairman of the CFR.
Welcome back to our show here. We're talking about COVID-19, and there's an interesting little story from Natural News, and it talks about a gentleman named Robert Verkerk. He's a Britain-based multidisciplinary scientist, got his doctorate from Imperial College London. He is sounding the warning that booster shots can further drive the mutation of the coronavirus. And he said they can create vaccine-resistant variants of the coronavirus. This is a sort of a reminder of what happened with all the antibiotics that were overused, leading to antibiotic-resistant diseases. And this guy is saying the same thing could happen with COVID-19. Over in Israel, they're investigating a number of adverse reactions in some of its citizens who got the Pfizer-BioNTech coronavirus vaccine. And they say they've identified more than 60 cases of heart lining and heart muscle inflammation in vaccinated Israelis. Israel administered the 2-dose mRNA vaccine to a large portion of its population. And, yeah. All righty. There is another interview. This is over at Global Research. And it's Dr. Sutarit Bhakti, who basically admitted that the problem with blood clotting was known, ignored, and buried in the haste to get the vaccines out the door and into your arms. And he stresses it's important that we come to understand what cerebral venous thrombosis is and why all of its symptoms seem to be identical to what we are told COVID-19 symptoms are. Here's another little article, and it sort of touches on the idea of shedding that we have been hearing about in recent weeks. Johns Hopkins came out with a document describing that self-spreading vaccines are genetically engineered to move through populations like communicable diseases, but rather than causing disease, they confer protection. The vision is that a small number of individuals in a target population could be vaccinated, and the vaccine strain would then circulate in the population, much like a pathogenic virus, resulting in rapid, widespread immunity. So this article, which is coming out of InfoWars, is asking if the COVID-19 vaccines were made to self-spread as well. Well, if they were, then I don't think we would be seeing this continuous high-pressure, highly coercive campaign for everybody to get the shot. This next story is a little bit alarming. This is coming out of ChristiansForTruth.com, and it's saying that COVID-19 survivors allegedly have an almost 60% increased risk of death up to 6 months after infection compared with non-infected people. And they're saying that this has a lot to do with those spike proteins, which are also used in the vaccines here. And deaths caused by long-term COVID-19 complications are not recorded as COVID-19 deaths. And he says we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg of that problem right now. Story out of Global Research. A team of researchers from Hospital del Mar in Barcelona, Spain, have basically come on out saying that high-dose vitamin D cuts the risk of death from COVID-19 by 60%. The researchers followed a total of 930 coronavirus patients, 551 of whom were randomly assigned to receive vitamin D alongside the standard coronavirus treatment. Patients receiving vitamin D were given a dose of 532 micrograms on day 1, followed by a dose of 266 micrograms on days 3, 7, 15, and 30. And apparently did have a significant result of reduction of death. Okay, over at Stanford University, there is a professor of medicine, Jay Bhattacharya. Now that's it. And he's out there saying that the CDC has sown fear and panic about the coronavirus, leading to the institutionalization of hypochondria in the general population. And he's saying that the sort of the relaxation of the mask mandate that we saw earlier in the week should have come long ago. And he says they're being entirely too cautious by saying only if you're vaccinated. People who have had the disease before are also theoretically immune. Why shouldn't they be allowed to not wear masks? The State Department has now issued a warning for Americans to leave India as the deaths over there surge. They're describing it as a mass killing. India is now the number one hotspot for COVID-19 in the world, and the State Department is saying it's time for Americans to come home. We got to take another break for commercials. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, 2, keep it today.
Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. We have a special promotion going on at Republic Broadcasting. This is a fundraiser for Republic Broadcasting involving the energy cleaner. Mail me a postcard. My address is at my website at thelibertyman.com. We pick a postcard every other Thursday. When your postcard is drawn out, you get to buy an energy cleaner for $215 instead of $285, $70 discount. $200 goes to Republic Broadcasting. You also get a 10% discount on my mattress pads. So get those postcards in, put your name, your telephone number, your email address on there, and when your postcard is drawn, you get to get an energy cleaner for $215 instead of $285. Mattress pads, 10% off. Help us out at Republic Broadcasting and help yourself to get an energy cleaner at a deep discount. It's a win-win situation for everybody. We hope you can get these postcards in soon. Thank you very much.
Please view, like, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Stop terrorism. Please contact us if you or anyone you know who wants to be on our show at thetruthpharmacy@gmail.com. Keep it real. Take the red pill.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Some are maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, just try it yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far 5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
Welcome back to our show here, and Flip Flop Fauci is out there saying that children still need to wear masks outdoors. And he's saying they need the masks as summer approaches. We were being told originally that cold weather was when the risk from the disease was the worst. So Fauci drew anger again Wednesday after continuing to insist children wear masks while playing outdoors, in spite of repeated studies showing outdoor transmission of COVID-19 is virtually nil. And obviously Fauci has not seen that Stanford study that the masks are just completely useless anyway. All righty, let's see. Okay. All right. There we are. I'm sorry. I'm dealing with some stuff in the control room. Story coming on out of Scoopy Web. Sarah Bookman, 34, from Glasgow, broke out in serious rashes and blisters on her legs after she got her first dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine. At one point, she was afraid that she was going to have some amputations, but so far, it doesn't look like that's going to be necessary. Okay, Representative Alma Hernandez from Arizona had both Pfizer shots and was taking the precautions like wearing a mask, washing her hands, social distancing, and still came down with COVID-19. And you have to wonder about that. We have a friend who got both shots of the Moderna vaccine, and she's come down with COVID-19. And again, I think I commented on this before. My doctor was one of the first, being a healthcare provider, was one of the first to get the vaccine, and almost immediately thereafter, she came down with COVID-19. Michigan is now forcing 2-year-olds to wear a mask all day. And, that's got to be psychologically damaging to a child of that age. Story coming on out of InfoWars. Over at CNN, one of their panels is suggesting that the White House should tell Americans the moment of freedom for you is when you get vaccinated. If you get your shot, you will get your freedom. And again, it's another coercive method to get people to take a shot, even as more and more people are doubting that the vaccines can even work, and worse, that they may suffer adverse reactions. All right, turning to the international news here, the White House has announced that the Afghanistan troop drawdown has officially begun. Traveling on Air Force One, the Deputy White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre confirmed to reporters that a drawdown was underway. Interestingly enough, they have started the drawdown by actually increasing forces in Afghanistan, supposedly to offer protection to those forces who are leaving. Hillary Clinton and Condoleezza Rice are slamming Biden on the Afghanistan withdrawal, and they're saying that the U.S. will probably have to go back some point down the road. So, let's see. Condoleezza Rice is saying we're probably going to have to go back. Let's see. We're having some technical difficulties. We're trying to get around there. Now, Al-Qaeda, or somebody claiming to be Al-Qaeda, is promising there will be a war on all fronts against America as Biden pulls out of Afghanistan. Now, this weekend marks the 10th anniversary since Osama bin Laden, or somebody looking sort of kind of like him, was killed in a special operations SEAL Team 6 in Abbottabad. Although there is considerable evidence that he actually died of natural causes sometime prior to that. But supposedly, in an interview with CNN, 2 al-Qaeda operatives said the war against the U.S. will be continuing on all other fronts unless they are expelled from the rest of the Islamic world. And as I said at the top of this, we don't know if this is al-Qaeda or just somebody pretending to be al-Qaeda or a part of al-Qaeda that's actually working for U.S. interests to try and keep us embroiled inside Afghanistan. Over in Ukraine, they're planning more bases on the Black Sea as the United States steps up their presence in the region. Ukraine is going to build 2 new naval bases in the Black Sea region, and they're seeing greater U.S. military and NATO involvement this year. One base will be built along the Black Sea, and the other in the Sea of Azov, a linked waterway that is a flashpoint between Russia and Ukraine. Okay. Now, so the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, will be visiting Ukraine next week amid growing tensions with Russia. And Blinken confirmed the trip to Ukraine during an interview with CBS News on 60 Minutes that will be shown this Sunday. And the trip to Ukraine comes after Russia built up a large military presence near the border of Ukraine. But let's keep in mind that they're not the only ones building up a heavy military presence in that area. Former Senator Harry Reid is out there saying that the so-called UFOs that were filmed buzzing U.S. warships, saying that these are actually Russian, they're not alien, and he's asking Joe Biden to set up a task force to counter the threat. Meanwhile, at the U.S. Embassy in Moscow, they have cut visa services, and they're warning Americans with expired visas to leave before the June 15th deadline in a further deterioration in relations with Russia. Boy, they really, really want a war over there. And that leads us to this story coming out of 1945.com. Why is Joe Biden risking war with Russia over Ukraine? And it's bad enough when the United States incurs grave risks to defend even indisputably democratic allies if those countries lack sufficient importance to America's economic and security interests. Too many U.S. allies, such as the Baltic republics, fail that crucial risk-benefit calculation. It's even worse when the United States incurs excessive risks on behalf of undemocratic allies or clients that have little intrinsic importance. And yet Washington is making exactly that blunder with respect to Ukraine. Over in Central Asia, Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan are heating up. They're having border clashes that have forced the evacuation of hundreds. Refugees are basically hiding out in local hotels, just sitting in the lobby trying to stay out of the fighting. And the clashes that erupted along the poorly demarcated border between the two countries over a reservoir and a pumping station are the heaviest in recent years and have raised concerns they could provoke a wider conflict. The Defender Europe 2021 military exercises led by U.S. Army Europe and Africa, which began a month and a half ago and will run through June, are now concentrating on the Balkans. This is the largest war game since the Cold War. And the Pentagon has reported the drills would occur at 30 locations in 12 nations and involve anywhere from 28,000 to 31,000 to 37,000 troops from as many as 27 countries. The exact locations of the exercises are not divulged, but can be gathered from what has been released that airborne missile defense and other drills have occurred or will occur from the Baltic to the Black to the Adriatic Seas. Okay. Story coming on out from Russia today. The Kremlin proposed a complete reset in the strained relationship between Moscow and Washington, D.C., following the inauguration of his fraudulency Joe Biden, but it was turned down by the White House. Speaking to journalists, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov explained that Russia wants to get back on a sound footing in its relationship with the United States. And Lavrov said if it only depended on us, we would return to normal relations, noting the first step would be to cancel the expulsions of Russian diplomats from Washington and U.S. diplomats from Moscow. And Lavrov also made the comment that the U.S. and Russia relationship is worse than during the Cold War with the Soviet Union. All right. Meanwhile, Russia has expelled diplomats from Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Slovakia. And this is a tit-for-tat response following last week's decision by those three republics to expel several Russian diplomats from their respective embassies in solidarity with the Czech Republic, amid the spat between Moscow and Prague over Russia's alleged involvement in an ammunition depot explosion in 2014. Moscow, of course, denies the allegation. And so that's heating up as well. Down in Syria, the organization Save the Children is reporting that suicides among Syrian children are rising sharply. And they're saying almost 1 in 5 of all recorded suicide cases now involve adolescents. Deaths by suicide increased by 86% in the last 3 months of 2020 in comparison to the first 3 months of that year. It added that a total of 246 people died by suicide during that period, while another 1,748 suicide attempts were recorded. And it's a shame when things are so bad that even children are taking their own lives. All right. Israel's permanent representative to the United Nations and ambassador to the United States, Gilad Erdan, said yesterday he estimated that the ongoing negotiations between the U.S. and Iran to revive the P5+1 nuclear agreement will lead to both parties striking a new deal within weeks. And he says, I say it with grief. The Americans presented before us the difficulties in the negotiations with Iran, but still the estimates in Israel are the sides will reach an understanding in the coming weeks. Meanwhile, over in Iran, informed sources have told Press TV that the U.S. must first remove all sanctions, denying Iran's benefits from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. And if you remember back when that was passed, it was, Iran was going to comply with their requirements under the P5+1 deal, and the United States reneged on their deal. They kept sanctions in place, and not only that, they added more of them. So it's understandable that Iran is going to say, if we're going to go back to that deal, both sides must be in compliance with its requirements. Little bit of good news coming out of the Middle East. Iran and Saudi Arabia are finally talking. And there have been recent discussions between Iranian and Saudi delegations at the encouragement of Iraq, and they're generating hope for a change. Now, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia denied any talks had occurred, but Saeed Khatibzadeh, spokesman for Iran's foreign ministry, suggested otherwise while refusing to comment directly. That would be a good thing if they were to start talking. Iran's foreign minister, Mohammad Javad Zarif, is calling for an end of the Yemen siege in a meeting with the chief Ansarullah negotiator. saying basically Yemen is facing these horrible conditions as a result of the 6-year war imposed on the country, calling for an end to the Saudi-led U.S.-backed military aggression and the lifting of the siege. And he reaffirmed Iran's support for a political solution as the only way out of the ongoing conflict in Yemen. Now, getting on back to Kerrygate, I guess is a good name to call it. Leaked audio tape of Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif indicates he had no knowledge of the covert Israeli military strikes before former Secretary of State John Kerry provided him with the information. And these details are likely to further fuel calls from leading Republicans for Kerry's firing or resignation. And so far, remember, the official story has been that the information Kerry provided was in the public domain. It wasn't classified, and this latest revelation from Iran basically says otherwise. So I guess they're calling it Zarif Gate. And this is causing a shakeup in Iran's presidential office. Their foreign minister has expressed regret, and the shakeup has led to the resignation of Hessameddin Ashena, head of the Strategic Studies Center. And he was apparently present during the interview with Zarif. The top Iranian diplomat had essentially said that it was military leadership that sets the policy. Iran has now banned 15 people from traveling over the Zarif leak. And they've banned these 15 people for alleged involvement in the leaked audio recording, in which the foreign minister complains about the influence of the Revolutionary Guards on Iranian diplomacy. In the leaked interview aired by the London-based Iran International Persian Language Satellite News Channel Sunday, Foreign Minister Zarif said he had zero influence over Iran's foreign policy. That's got to make his job very, very difficult. Meanwhile, Israel is out there rattling the sabers and talking tough again. Israeli Intelligence Minister Eli Cohen is still out there denouncing the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action a bad deal, and warned that Israel is willing to take military action to stop Iran in its much-rumored quest to obtain a nuclear weapon. And Cohen said a bad deal will send the region spiraling into war. And we're going to take a break for commercials, and I'm going to keep talking for you too, because RBN, we need to do a reconnect over Skype. So we're going to go ahead and disconnect and see if we can get things to work a little bit better. Skype, when it was peer-to-peer, worked so much better than what it does now. And we're going to see what happens with this. I don't want to do too much news here because our RBN audience is going to miss it. But it does seem like everybody is hovering on the edge of war. They just want somebody else to, let's see, calling now, and hopefully we're going to get back. There it is.
It's for the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll-free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
It's happening, ladies and gentlemen. We here at RBN are working with Front Sight Firearms Training Institute to bring our audience the best in combat, tactical, and defensive firearms training. Whether you're a private citizen who is new to firearms, or you have a concealed weapon permit and want a level of training that surpasses what you've received from your local gun range, Front Sight provides priceless education and skills taught by seasoned law enforcement, military, and private citizen instructors to levels that far exceed law enforcement and and military standard. With nearly 1 million responsible citizens trained from every town, city, and state from across the United States, Front Sight has bolstered the Patriot movement to a whole new level. Contact Dan Sutterfield by phone at 573-762-2356 or 573-465-2356 or shoot him an email at domedan, DOMEDAN, at hotmail.com. This is a limited time opportunity. Don't miss it.
Have you been looking for a trusted long-term storable food company? We have a solution for you. Simply Clean Foods is dedicated to providing the best quality food you can buy next to fresh from a farmer's market. Our line of resealable fruits, vegetables, and meats are suitable for everyday use, and you won't have to worry about throwing away valuable groceries ever again. Our food is completely GMO-free, and our stringent quality controls, plus testing for heavy metals, makes us unique in the storable foods market. Simply Clean Foods' primary focus is to bring clean food to people all around the world and change the way we look at freeze-dried food in our daily cooking. When you purchase from simplycleanfoods.net, not only will you be receiving high-quality food, but you will also be supporting veterans in need across the country and those who are affected by natural disasters. Right now, Amazon Prime members will receive fast 2-day shipping. Go to simplycleanfoods.net. That's simplycleanfoods.net. But do it today.
We are living in dangerous days, and I am frightened by what you say. It chills right to the core. This talk of holy war.
And welcome back to our show here. And over in Turkey, tensions between Turkey and the United States have been in decline ever since Turkey went with Russia's S-400 air defense system. The United States has now canceled plans to sell Turkey the F-35, which is probably a good thing. And Erdogan is now claiming that all of the U.S. nuclear weapons currently stored at the Incirlik Air Base now belongs to Turkey. And so he's trying to basically say Turkey is now a nuclear power, and we'll wait and see what the United States government is going to do in response to that. Okay. Over in Israel, they've had a little bit of a problem with the Iron Dome missile system. There's a group of Israeli soldiers who have claimed that serving in the batteries of the Iron Dome defense system is giving them cancer. And the problem appears to be that radar system. And they're saying when you're standing near the radar, you're literally feeling your body boiling from the inside out. And they said it's what happens to food in the microwave. It's like that. And at least 10 Israeli soldiers in their 20s and 30s have developed cancer after spending time with the Iron Dome missile system. All righty, I guess we're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines. I got a lot of news here, but people are already starting to call on in. So let's go to Peter in Los Angeles. Hello, Peter. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. Listen, I just wanted to start off by talking about what you just talked about, which is the Iron Dome system, which the United States and its taxpayers paid for the development, and it was our technology. And in case people didn't know, Israel, after we developed and gave them money for everything, they sold it back to the United States.
Yes.
So we have to pay for the technology that we gave them and developed for them. But the real reason, Mike, I was calling is that the Biden speech the other day and the response. And the Biden speech was so pathetic, it really almost requires no comment at all. But the response by Tim Scott?
Yes.
Who did a really good job, and I'm thankful that Tim Scott is there, but to do that. But the point I wanted to make, Mike, is that this was the Biden speech was all about white supremacy and how all the national security agencies are saying that white terrorists threat, and it was all anti-white virtually the whole way through. And yet, for the response in the Republican Party, which is, the Republicans probably 75% white, was given by a black guy who did a good job, and good on him and all that. But why do we have to have a black spokesman? Right?
Okay, Peter.
For the Republican Party.
Peter,
I'm
I'm going to put you on hold. Don't hang up. We got to take a break for station identification, and we'll be right back.
Hey gang, Patrick Slattery here with an important message that is pertinent to anyone who shops for groceries, eats food, or just has an inquisitive mind like myself. What I'm about to introduce you to is a segment of our food culture that has been kept so low profile to the American public that virtually no one is aware of how dominant it is on our refrigerator and cupboard shelves. What I'm talking about is the kosher certification industry and a new app, Koshertified, that delivers a comprehensive education on all aspects regarding this little-known practice. After reviewing this app, I found that it is useful for practically anyone who purchases food, regardless of their religious faith or identity. Its database of products not kosher certified is a win-win convenience for all food-conscious people. So why not check out thekosherquestion.com or click on the link at nationalbugle.com and see how modifying your grocery shopping with the Koshertified app can make a huge difference for your future.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, area code 512-248-8252. And we're talking with Peter in Los Angeles. And Peter, just pick up where you left off.
Well, I was talking, Mike, about Tim Scott, God bless him, who gave a first-class rebuttal of the gibberish and ridiculousness that Joe Biden was spewing the other day on his address to Congress. But I was pointing out the fact that Tim Scott was picked to be the representative of the Republican Party to deliver a rebuttal to Biden's speech, which was largely a white hate speech. Biden's speech was. He's, white supremacy, white terrorism, the biggest threat since the Civil War, all that crap that he was saying.
Yes.
All those lies. But here we have a party that is at least 75% white, and we need to have a black spokesman. We're not even allowed to have our own spokesman talking about racism against us. And I want to also point out that he was picked to do that by the powers that be in the Republican Party, who are now putting him forward over Trump, by the way, because they don't want Trump, to be the next Republican candidate. So they're turning their back again on their white base, and I'm nothing against Tim Scott at all, but against the leaders of the Republican Party and the owners. We know who the owners are of the Republican Party. We know who the biggest owners are to both parties, but we're not even allowed to have our own spokesman. And now they are saying Trump is null and void. This is the guy we're going to back for the Republican presidency, and they're already making noises about that. And I thought that was stuck out in my mind anyways. And you look on TV, again, the owners of the media, and even though blacks are 13% of the population, and God bless them, but every commercial is all black all the time.
Yes.
And we're even being, as I've said many times, disrespected even as a marketing segment, even though we have far more money, far more people, far more highly educated, and yet they cater to, we don't even get catered to by Madison Avenue, let alone Wall Street, let alone the government, let alone the Republican Party or the Democratic Party or the president. It's really bad, Mike. Just wanted to know if you had noticed that and what you think.
Well, there is no question that corporate media and politicians and Madison Avenue are definitely pandering to the black population because they're out there making a lot of noise and rioting, and the old saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and the white population just isn't squeaking enough yet.
But, Mike, it goes beyond the squeaky wheel getting the grease. We're talking about a media that is weaponizing and enabling, and the government, as Biden did with his anti-white rhetoric on, so the government and the media, the Democratic government and the media, are aligned, like, shoulder to shoulder in this anti-white stuff, as are the leaders of the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. And so it's more than just a squeaky wheel, and everybody's afraid that the blacks will riot at the drop of a hat, which they will, but they've been enabled and weaponized by Biden, the Democratic Party, and the media. So it's beyond just a squeaky wheel, Mike. It's collusion, and there's purpose behind it all.
Yeah, well, again, it does seem like we're headed toward what happened in South Africa and Zimbabwe, which, by the way, did not work out very well for either country.
Yeah, especially for the white population, but didn't work out well for anybody. But at any rate, Mike, and God forbid, we should have taken those people who are really refugees, who are being murdered wholesale. I'm talking about the white South Africans who are in danger of their life every second of the day of being murdered. But we can't take them in here. We can take in all the people from the North African littoral or the Levant and people from, but we can't take in whites. Oh my God, no to that. No, even though they're more highly educated and capable as a group than the others.
Well, I saw a story earlier today where somebody was making the observation that we have a population that hates accomplishment. And they're targeting people like Shakespeare and Newton and so forth for being able to do things that they themselves cannot. And it's like the old story of the smarties and the dummies, where the dummies outbred the smarties and then killed all the smarties off so that they could go around saying, well, we're now the smartest people on the planet.
Well, yeah, it even goes back to the old, they had a kind of an inferiority complex.
Yes.
And they'd say, we invented the light bulb, we invented this. What they're trying to do is kind of related to that, is they're embarrassed, frankly, relatively, on accomplishments versus the white historical accomplishments, everything from getting to the moon. I'm sorry for the, for the clerks that did the numbers, sort of, or did all the scientific advances and invented the game of basketball, invented the game of football that they now play, invented the camera that they now watch it on, invented everything. Look around. What we didn't invent is pretty small. And so they're trying, in order to dehumanize us and to take over and basically take over supremacy from us. And I'm talking about attitude. I'm talking about accomplishment. They have to downplay that.
Yes, they do.
And I think I had a conversation the other day, Mike, where I was speaking with a friend of mine and how all this started. And remember Stanley Dr. Livingstone, I presume. Remember?
Yes.
Finding in somewhere by Lake Tanganyika in like 1875, And if you were to go to Africa in 1875 and see a whole continent that has 12,000 miles of coastline but made no ships, that had no universities, no rail lines, no written languages, no building over 1 story high, no nothing. And you had great universities in Europe, locomotives, and a highly developed rail lines in North America, steamships with celestial navigation, on mass production, specialization of labor, scientific agriculture. And how could you not have had a racist attitude? How could you have come away from that and said, geez, these people are as backwards as can be compared to us? How could you not have arrived at that? But, that, whatever, just saying. But different evolutionary and climate and environmental influences. But listen, how could you not arrive at that conclusion? And now they're trying to cancel math, Beethoven, and Ebonics. Remember Ebonics?
I remember Ebonics, yeah. And now they're saying that correct spelling and grammar is white supremacy.
Right, which means that it's a return of Ebonics, really. And it's saying that we want to teach, we're giving up, we can't teach these people English, which is crap because my daughter maxed her ACTs. But at any rate, that's what they're saying. And we're going to teach you to a standard where you can't even secure a telephone customer service job. Because who would hire an Ebonics guy for that? So it's ridiculous. But, that's pretty much it for me, Mike, unless you want to develop this more or what.
No, I hear what you're saying, and, it is a complicated issue, and we seem to have hit an age where segments of the population feel that it's easier to politically agitate and riot to improve their situation in society rather than to actually work to better themselves and accomplish something.
I agree with that, Mike. But I want to put in there again that the media and the Democratic Party and the government is enabling and weaponizing that. They're putting that forward. They're pushing that, and they're pushing that against us. So, and they're allowing private companies to do so, which clearly a violation of the civil rights law and discrimination in hiring, and saying, like United Airlines, I want to hire 50% of our workforce is going to be minority and women. Well, we're 60% of the population. Where does that leave us?
Well, it leaves us on the unemployment line.
That's right. We're paying the taxes, but we can't get the jobs. We're paying the taxes, we can't get into schools. We're paying the taxes, and we can't get the police force to protect us anymore. Whatever, and we have a president that comes right out and says it.
Yeah.
He wants to call us terrorists. So, anyways, I know you got people on the line there, Mike, and I love you. Best to Claire, best to everybody out there. Have a great weekend. I'm going to sign off.
All right. Thanks an awful lot for the phone call. We're going to go to Al in West Virginia. Hello, Al. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. Man, so much he said. Now I've got a little bit more on my mind.
Yes.
First of all, since you said you and Claire took that vaccine, right?
Yeah, we did. We kind of got coerced into it. The nursing home where Claire's mother is living said that we could not visit her unless we got vaccinated. And so we got the Johnson & Johnson shot because at the time there were no reports of adverse reactions to it. Of course, that was then and now is now. And we are hearing about adverse reactions, and, we're having a vaccine regret, but there's nothing we can do about it now.
Right. So I'm not going to go any further with that because I know you're starting to learn things more now.
Yes.
But anyhow, the term terrorism or tyranny is actually, if you look in etymology, you'll find out that that's a government that goes against its people and creates tyranny.
Yes.
But let's move on a little bit further here. And also that last caller there, the reason they're doing all this, they do it every 30 years or 40 years. They turn black against whites, whites against whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's constant battle just to keep it going.
Well, it's even worse now than it was back in the 60s when you had the FBI coming out with things like the Black Panther coloring book and, other things to turn the races against each other, because it's, divide and conquer. The thing the United States government is most afraid of is the American people uniting as a single people and recognizing what the real source of all the hardship in their life is.
Exactly. And the original Black Panthers wasn't really trying to do good for their
they wanted local control of the school curriculum. They wanted breakfasts for the kids in the ghetto, and it was the way they got treated by the government that radicalized them.
Right. And now the last thing I was going to ask or say or get your opinion of is, for years they've been having these war games where let's say China and Russia or whoever, or United States was even involved many times, and they have these different war games. Now why, if they're supposedly our enemies, why in the world would you let them know anything about your technology? Why would you have war games? Why wouldn't you keep them as far away as you can be? That's what makes me think that they're all in cahoots, that everybody's working together.
Well, certainly those who are making money off the sale of weapons in all of these countries are trying to fan this along. We have the military-industrial complex here in the United States, and I'm sure there's something similar to it in Russia and in China, and for that matter, France and Great Britain. It's all about the greed.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is, okay, if you're here, if you're supposed to protect the United States, why would you even let them have any information, go out there in the sea and do anything? You know what I'm saying? Why would you let them have any incline of...
Well, because then they develop countermeasures, and you come back and say, well, we need more tax money to defeat the countermeasures that they've just developed, and that's what the Cold War was really all about, just this continuing fear-mongering of Russia, the former Soviet Union, as an excuse to plunder the American people and keep the defense contractors wealthy.
Exactly. I couldn't put it said it better. They're all in bed together. It's this whole daggone thing's a scam, just like this, everything else that's going on. They're all, if you really look at it deep and start taking away all these negatives, you'll find out that the positives they're all in cahoots together. They have been for years and years and years. And that's what I believe. I'm not 100% sure.
Well, it's a lot like professional wrestling. I mean, and in front of the cameras and the public, they're going to sneer at each other and pound on each other. But once you turn away, they're slapping each other on the back, and they're just the best of friends.
Right. They're drinking a beer together.
Yep.
You're right. Okay. I won't take up no more time. I just wanted to know. Anyhow. Okay, you have a good day.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to go to Mike in Arizona. Hello, Mike. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yes, good afternoon, Mike. Say, my issue here is something about the border. Now, the name of the suspect has not been released, but late last night, about 10:30, there was a Chandler police officer. He was run over and killed. The incident started down in a place called Eloy, Arizona, and Pinal County Sheriff's deputy tried to stop this vehicle for speeding, and the person took off, shot at the deputy. There was a high-speed chase up into one of the outskirts of the Phoenix area, a place called Chandler, Arizona. The guy drove through a fence, onto the airfield, then down to the runway, and then he got out of there and went to an autoplex and stole a vehicle. And that's when he ran over the Chandler police officer and killed him. And there was Gilbert, which is an adjacent city to Chandler. He's also got a serious head injury. Now, Eloy is a super hot spot for illegal activity. And being that this happened about, 16 hours ago, they still have not released the identity. And I'm going out on a limb here to say that the possibility is most likely an illegal alien. I have no proof, but when other things happen, they usually have a tendency to say it was Bill Smith within about 5 seconds of when it had happened. So that's just a heads up. Have a couple other issues here. And we hear all about the news now. Obviously, when Bite Me had his speech the other night, he said a lot of things, but sometimes it's when they don't say something that because he never mentioned anything whatsoever about the border. But there was a Gulf cartel boss known as R2. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison after he was found hiding in Texas. This guy's name is Abiel Gonzalez Barones. And didn't hear that. There was a Chinese money launderer. He just got sentenced to 14 years. He was operating in Mexico. DEA had an eye on this guy, and then he flew up to LAX to catch a flight to Hong Kong, and they arrested him there. The Sinaloa cartel leader, he's in the state of Washington. He got sentenced just recently to 26 years. And then Mexico extradites one of the DEA's most wanted fugitives to the United States. The guy's name is Raul Rene Rodriguez Romero.
Mike,
he's one
Mike, I got to put you on hold. Don't hang up. I'm going to come right back to you after these words from our sponsors.
There, are you going to wait till the cows come home to get your new ease-off drop-and lift?
What in the world is an ease-off drop-and lift?
Our ease-off is a new tool to increase production for your meat processing company that will get that whole hog or half a beef on or off your rail with our remote control.
That sounds great, but can I afford it?
Sure, and the ease-off installs fast. The effortless operation will reduce fatigue, speed up your line, and increase profits.
Okay, I'm convinced. Where can I get my ease-off?
Go to easeoff.com. That's EAZEOFF.com. And hurry, because we're offering free shipping for a limited time. Easeoff.com. We make pigs fly. Cows, too.
Ease-Off, LLC, 417-932-6419.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
Corporations, Wall Street and the banks rule our politicians. They don't deserve our thanks, then they tell us the banks are too big to fail, when the banksters all need to be in jail.
And welcome back to our show here. And before we go back to the phones here, again, a reminder that Republic Broadcasting Network needs your continuing support to keep doing our work the way we have been. And again, a heartfelt thanks to those of you who have been supporting Republic Broadcasting all along. So once again, the postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. Now, if you send in a donation of $100, you will get your choice of an official RBN coffee mug or an official RBN t-shirt. So obviously you need to include your t-shirt size and a return address. If you send in a donation of $115 or more, you will get both the cup and the t-shirt. And I understand we're running low on the t-shirt, so if you want to get one, the time to act is now. And don't forget the front sight firearms deal. That's a real sweet deal for Second Amendment enthusiasts. All right, we're going to go back to Mike in Arizona, who's talking about the immigration problem. And Mike, just sort of pick up where you left off.
No, I was just saying that, well, number one is I just read to you those, just a snippet of, 4 or 5 articles. There are things that are happening here in the United States, and the mainstream media is not reporting on it. I don't hear anybody in the alternative media reporting on it. There was, there was back, I think it was in early April, he was a former congressman in Honduras, and he's the brother of the sitting president in Honduras. He got arrested in Miami back in, I think it was 2018. He was found guilty in October of 2019, and then in late March or April, he got sentenced to life in prison plus 30 years for importing tons of cocaine into the United States and be an accomplice to at least 2 murders. And, I try to convince people, they go, oh, well, it's a border thing. I don't live in Texas or Arizona or California, New Mexico, and it doesn't bother me. But in a roundabout way, it really does, because, when we hear about gang violence, they call it, and gun violence up in, say, Chicago, but the drugs are coming through. 50% of the drugs coming into the United States come through the Tucson sector here in Arizona. And then they make it up to Flagstaff, I-40-ish, and then go out on Route 66 up to the main hub. And then as they're broken down, then they get to the individual street distributor level. And what's going on with these drug shootouts, that's what's going on, is these competing gangs, the street corner gangs, are competing for the lucrative street corners.
Yes.
But then the politicians turn it into gun violence, but they're not telling you what it actually is about, is actually drug violence. And, I would just, as a listener, and maybe I'm a little bit impartial, but I'd like to hear a little bit more about these things, because this stuff is important, even though that the people don't live in a border state. Like I said, there was a whole bunch of them. There was this I had that one there at the guy was up in Washington State as a Sinaloa cartel leader, and he got sentenced to 26 years in prison, and not a peep of it on the media. So
no, the corporate media, they
like
never talk about crime by illegal immigrants, or they hide the fact that they're illegal immigrants, just like they never report on crime where the perpetrator is black. It's only, the white perpetrators and black victims get the headline news.
Yes, correct. If it was Bill Smith, we'd have known 15 hours ago what the guy's identity was and where he was from and his rap sheet and everything like that. So that's one of the things that kind of piques my curiosity, why it happened at 10:30 last night. And now here we are, 16 hours later, that they still haven't released the, and again, this border thing, maybe to just put things into perspective, sometimes they report on the big snowfall in Minnesota or the hurricane in Florida, and sometimes I yawn and roll my eyes thinking, well, I live in Arizona, and who cares if it's a Category 3 or a Category 4 and what the computer projection is of where the hurricane's going to hit, because it really doesn't affect us out here. But that really doesn't apply, that same standard does not apply to the rest of the people in the United States. This is not a border thing. And
MS-13 is all over the country now.
Well, they've been all over the country for quite a long time. They're catching them for years and years coming across the border. They even had but they're still running the Mara Salvatruce. They're still running that from the prisons down in El Salvador, and they've been trying to push to unite all gangs in the whole United States under MS-13. Oh yeah, they're extremely
well, Mike, I'm going to have to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials. I've got other callers waiting on the line, and we will be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
For over 20 years now, Extendivite has proven time and again it really works. Here is a testimonial from Amazon.com. I received an arterial switch at birth. In my mid-20s, I started getting slight runs of NSVT. Nothing too serious, but enough to cause worry. I started taking Extendivite a little over 2 years ago, and it helped cut the palpitations and NSVT down drastically. This isn't a cure-all supplement. I strongly recommend a good diet and exercise to aid in any heart troubles you may be having, and I strongly recommend giving Extendivite a try. Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com. That's HEARTDROP.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Hello, I'm Dr. Leonard Horowitz. I was right 30 years ago in warning the world about threatening lab virus outbreaks, AIDS, and Ebola. I was right 20 years ago when FBI Director Robert Mueller made me a suspect in the anthrax mailings because I warned the Bureau before the CIA's biocrime and Cipro sales psyops happened. I was right about COVID-19 being an AIDS-laced mutagen planned to resurge this fall to excuse officials' profitable depopulation globalization agendas. And I was right about the only safeguards being antioxidants and holy spiritual sustenance. Vitamin C, D, zinc, chlorophyll, oxygen, and oxysilver especially transmits the frequency resonance to neutralize the expanded function bioweapon. Oxysilver is a double superconductor of the healing power of love. It is the first nutraceutical invented to amplify prayer power and the faithful, loving intention of your heart. Buy, try, and stockpile Oxysilver through HealthyWorldStore.com.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, the number 2, keep it today.
Welcome to What Really Happened Radio. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. And now, set your eyes on the future and let's consider what really happened.
Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones to David in Allentown. Hello, David. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Mike. How you doing?
Doing fine.
How do I say this? I'm a student of law, but I'm not anything associated with law. I like reading it, studying it, learning about it. And you were talking about police, or there was a gentleman that had mentioned the topic about police having, they're supposed to protect us. Actually, no, they're not. And out of all of the law I've ever read, I've never read any actual law that stipulated that police are required or obligated or bound to protect anyone. If that were the case,
that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. There was a famous landmark case came out of Georgetown where these 3 women were sharing a townhouse, and some thugs broke in and started raping one of the women on the first floor, and the other 2 women called the police, and they called the police, and they called the police, and finally the ruckus on the first floor stopped, and they assumed that the bad guys had left, and they walked downstairs only to be attacked and raped themselves, and they sued the police for failure to protect them, failure to show up when they'd called, and they lost the case on that very ground. There is no law that compels the police to protect ordinary citizens, which is why we should hang on to our guns.
Well, that being said, if you take away people's guns in any way, shape, or fashion, you're basically participating in a crime in an attempt to murder them.
Yeah, I can see that.
I went a little bit further, and I started to ask this question about where I live. Allentown, Pennsylvania is a decent-sized city that has grown to the point where it literally merged or attached or is literally right next door to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And then there's Easton. You can drive through one town after another and go right out of Easton, right into Bethlehem, and so on. And Bethlehem Steel, this was the home of one of the largest steel mills in the area.
Mm-hmm.
Northampton County is actually Easton and Bethlehem, and then Allentown and parts of West Bethlehem are actually part of Lehigh. And there's 2 sheriff's departments, one for Northampton and one for Lehigh. And I found out something very interesting about what the purpose of a sheriff is. The people, they vote for a sheriff, and then he has a duty, an actual duty, an obligation to serve the people in upholding the law. He has a duty to do something for them. But the police department, if you go look in all of your towns historically, when your town incorporated, it went from being a town or a borough or what we would think as a city or a town, it turned into an actual business. A municipal town or a municipal, like the city of Easton, is a municipality. And if you look up the legal definition of it, it's actually a business. And in order to protect its interests or to enforce its business interests, it created, along with it, somewhere in its history, a police department. and they're actually tied together in a very unique way.
Mhm.
If you look at the state police is also part of a corporation. Now, the question that people have failed to take notice of is neither one of these departments, whether it's the state police or local police, are duty-bound to protect you, because if they did have that duty, they would be liable for failure. And as you just mentioned, that court case would prove that that observation. A sheriff, even a sheriff or a deputy, they don't even have the obligation to protect anyone. They have a duty to arrest lawbreakers, just like the police do.
Yes.
If they take away our guns, which the sheriff has a duty and an obligation to protect those rights, that they would remain. People could literally go after the sheriff and the department for a constitutional violation. He took an oath, and that oath and if you know Sheriff Mack, he brings up that very issue about people's gun rights in that whole situation with him. He has an obligation to maintain the local people's rights. The feds can't just walk into a county and say, no, we have a law. They can't do that. And in the Supreme Court ruling of Mack, he actually was within his right to tell the feds to take a hike. He doesn't work for the federal government. He doesn't have to perform federal background checks. The question that needs to be answered very carefully in that situation, if he's not bound by federal law because he doesn't work for the federal government, do the people? Are they bound by federal law, being that they don't work for the government?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and I think it touches on the fact about whether the government itself is even legitimate given the rigged election last November.
If you go down that rabbit hole, I'm going to throw a caveat and if not a brick. There's a man by the name of Aaron Russo. He died.
Oh, I remember Aaron. We had him on the show just before he passed.
I helped Aaron Russo promote his film in the local area where I'm at. I spent $3,000 of my money. I chartered a bus. I bought the tickets for the people to get on the bus. I bought the bus tickets to bus them from Allentown to the Manhattan premiere and met with Aaron Russo at that location. And there's something very interesting in his film, America, Freedom to Fascism. What we are looking at here in our country, and if people don't study this very carefully, we're watching something born right out of history. Mussolini said, and I quote, "Fascism is nothing more than government corporatism."
Yes.
It is the birth, the rise of corporate activity. And if you look at what Thomas Jefferson said, if the American people ever allow private banks to control and issue their currency, first by inflation and then by deflation, the banks and the corporations that would grow up around them would deprive the people of all property until their children wake up homeless on the continent that their fathers had conquered.
Yes.
We're watching this actually transpire. You look
It's happening right now.
You'll see it's happening right now. You'll see the symbols of fascist symbols on a dime. Germany was a Weimar Republic. We're a republic, and we are watching history repeat itself just in a different location out of the people's ignorance to suppress this activity. How can they suppress it if they've been dumbed down? And we know the damage of being a dumbed-down society.
Yes.
But the police have no obligations to protect anyone. It is your obligation. That's why the founders instituted it's a divine right, if you think about it.
Yes.
Animals in nature have the ability to protect themselves, and that's all life should have that same ability.
Mm-hmm.
Any government that intends on taking this right away or limiting it is working towards the idea of a global genocide. And I think they found a very convenient way through this so-called pandemic or scamdemic or however you want to word it. But that's suggestive most of what I had to say about the subject. Police, the word poli, P-O-L-I, meaning many. The word police society, if you reverse the word state police, we live in a police state.
Yes.
Every state has a state police. They are living in a police state, whether they want to face this reality or not. A totalitarian regime or a government has emerged in every local nook and cranny throughout the entire 50 United States. Is there a way for us to get back to the basics and turn this around? I found something very interesting, and I had intentions. I tried. I sent a message to John Statmiller, and I was hoping to talk with him off the air about it, but now I'm going to fire a cannon, and this cannon is very, very loud. A gentleman who called in on his show on the second hour of March 8th, and the gentleman was astute. I was paying attention to what he said, and he said something very carefully, and I remembered it. I went on the archives, I downloaded the show, and I listened to it again and again, and then I said, now it's time to act. I went online, found this very interesting court case, and I have been involved in studying law to the point where I knew in my heart that this language was correct. I just didn't have any proof of it. The gentleman had quoted this case called Chisholm versus Georgia. It's a 1793 U.S. Supreme Court case. You must go read this and study it very carefully. And specifically, if you do look at the case, it's dry. Speed past all of it and go to point 112 on the brief itself. When you get to 112, read from 112 down to 113, 114, and right at the end of 114, it slams a huge door wide open and tells you who we all really are in relation to the would-be government that has taken off and is running amok. People don't know who they are. You must read that brief. That gentleman that was on his show, he knew exactly what he was telling John. Now, my question to John would be, did he act on the information with, he had gotten a ticket. It was a traffic ticket. I don't know, no license plate or whatever it was, but he had intentions on going to address the court on that matter. And the gentleman that called in told him, claim the Sixth Amendment, mention this case.
Okay, your phone is kind of fading a little bit.
I'm also rambling. But anyway, hopefully I find out from John one day
okay.
what it was and what happened. But anyway, that's what I had to say. Have a good night.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Dan in Washington State. Hello, Dan. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, I was calling about Peter's call. The other guy kind of got me off track there. But, yeah, it's funny listening to Peter. I always wonder if his wife is in the room when he's calling in, or she did they get in a fight that day? But, yeah, to me, the Republican Party has become worse than nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You were talking yesterday about wokeness, and they continue decade after decade to never stand up to the wokeness in an effective way. So in that way, they allow the wokeness. So they are just the other half of the machine there. So they're too busy. The Democrats openly attack white people, and then the Republicans are just too busy trying to prove they're not racist. Then they'll talk about how great Martin Luther King is and how they love Israel, and there you go. But that's. Have you heard of a term called Finkelfink, Mike?
No, I have not.
Kind of like they developed it on TRS, but there's actually a guy, Arthur Finkelstein, who developed this whole fake left-right paradigm, and he did it, I think around after Nixon's time. And I'll just let you look into that term. It's we've all known about the fake left-right paradigm for a long time.
Yes.
You talk about the feminist thing in the 90s, the just decade after decade, the Republicans turned out to be worse than nothing, really. They don't defend anything, and the Democrats always win. So that was my point on that. That's why I'm never going to vote Republican again. People are pushing this DeSantis guy. And all I can say about DeSantis is he launched his campaign from Israel, and that's all you really need to know about DeSantis. So, and he was for the anti-BDS legislation. But what scared me is they're turning. I learned after Charlottesville, and it should have shown you after the Capitol riots, the Republicans are the biggest backstabbers.
Mm-hmm. Well, they all are.
Some of them, like Marco Rubio was actually saying, if you're even accused of terrorism, because they're trying to turn white people into the new Al-Qaeda.
Yes.
They're trying to pass like Patriot Act style laws against us. And it just surprised me, even like Marco Rubio said, if you've even been accused of domestic terrorism, you should have your gun rights taken away. So it's really scary with these Republicans. So that's all I'll say on that. So I've just realized they're worse than nothing. It's better to have an enemy in your face than someone that stabs you in the back. And Trump was kind of my last attempt with those guys, but that's where I don't care at this point anymore after seeing what happened there. I wanted to give a shout out to Marco. I liked his call yesterday, and I thank them for sticking up for pagans, because it is our traditional religion, and I'd rather identify as a Viking than a Christian these days, because I'm starting the American Christian movement is it's the same thing as the Republican Party. It's totally been turned into a Zionist kind of philo-Semitic, just Judophile fest there, and so there's a lot of good Christians on like Republic that I've enjoyed. There, someone like Mark Dankoff, or there's some versions of Christianity that are still, I would say, honorable, but the term Christian to me is pretty stained, just like the term conservative or all these things. So that's where I'm at. So, but yeah, I'll just let it go at that. To me, the Republican Party is worse than nothing, because they do that time after time again. So that's all I got. Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Charles in St. Petersburg, Florida. Charles, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
How you doing, Mike? If somebody wonders about the police department, just think about the Threat Fusion Center. All the police departments in this country are all united together. They're already on the road to being nationalized. And what I wanted to talk about mainly is thing from the truthseeker.co.uk. Jim Stone with some Vax horror tales. Here's what he says here. It's on the truthseeker.co.uk. Stay away from the vaxxed. It is official from Pfizer's own documents. Download from the original source. Download from my server. The elite have already flown off to their hideouts. They have released the genocidal facts. Read it and weep.
Yeah. We were talking about what's in the Pfizer's own documents about, pregnant women being exposed to it and whatnot.
Right. He says whatever is in the from the vaccine to the unvaccinated. Well, they're talking about proof that they're shedding. I guess what's happening in India is an indication that supposedly they're having, people collapsing in streets. I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty bad over there. The official story is that it's a severely mutated version of the virus. They're calling it a triple mutation. But it's definitely nasty.
Yeah, that's their line. Of course, they're going to the pharmaceuticals. Oh yeah, we got to have more vaccinations, not less. Don't end the vaccinations. Just have more so you can spread it.
Yeah, well, just make more money.
Document is saying, he goes on, and it's an interesting document. I'm going to try to put it up on the Republic Broadcasting's site, on the internet site. This thing, the whole thing. Yeah, and the guy talking about pagans. Tonight is Walpurgis knocked. It's
Yeah.
May. It's a big. Yeah, no wonder Harry Potter. They're having a Harry Potter fest on television.
Yeah, well, they're fun movies. What can I tell? I remember when Harry Potter first came out,
they're fun.
and there was this big stink from all the religious groups saying, no, you can't expose children, to witchcraft and sorcery and wizardry. It's going to be bad for them. And it's, it turned out to be one of the most successful film and book franchises of all times. Anyway, listen, we're getting short on time, Charles. I'm going to let you go.
Thank you.
And we're going to switch over to Andy in Texas. Hello, Andy. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, hey, Mike, I'm glad you got me on. Hey, I just want to tell you, this has been one of the most informational shows. You've got some new callers on the line that haven't heard. And you've got some really good information out there. I mean, the gentleman from Arizona talking about somebody being arrested in Washington for doing, it's just crazy. This is stuff we're not hearing. The wonderful thing is that people are waking up. The crazy thing is are we waking up in time? Because we got some work to do here. We really do. And that's basically my point is that, it's nice to hear some great callers coming in. And it's funny. It's just seriously funny how we don't hear the news we need to hear on our little square box over there in the corner called TV.
Yes.
Funny how we can't get information from that.
No, the corporate media is exposed as the U.S. government's propaganda arm, and that's why less than half of the American people trust the corporate media anymore. And that's why corporate media hates the independent media so much.
Yeah, and they're getting rid of us. Those of us.
They're trying.
Even us people who call into the phone on your network here. We have something to say, and people are hearing that. But as soon as they silence that, that means you guys are gone too. So, when that happens, we got to go back to the 70s when we didn't have cell phones. We got to go back to actually communicating. Maybe there won't even be phones. We'll actually have to get in contact with people, our neighbors.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why they had all this mask and social distancing stuff. Had nothing to do with the COVID virus and everything to do with discouraging Americans from talking with each other about how badly managed the country is.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. I'll let you go. You probably got another caller you want to get in.
Yeah, I do. Thank you very much. We're going to go to Mitchell in Memphis. Hello, Mitchell. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Michael, what's going on? We don't have much time. Let me get right to it. The guy was talking about the police and duty to protect. I was looking into that. You recall the Parkland shooting. This is a case you did a story on where they're coming back around full circle, and they want to use that case to try to grab the guns. That was a Judge Beth Bloom that cited the 1989 Supreme Court case of DeShaney versus Winnebago. All these cases, and you mentioned one of those. I think you were referencing Warren versus D.C.
Yes.
There's Castle Rock and Gonzales. All of these are cases that refer back to this idea that police have no duty to protect. I tracked that down to 1855 U.S. Supreme Court, South v. Maryland. And that's what they call. The Supreme Court came with an idea called the public duty doctrine. The public duty doctrine definition. The public duty doctrine provides that the governmental entity cannot be held liable for individual plaintiffs. Blah 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 blah. So basically, this is back in what I'd say 1855. That's only 64 or so years after we created the new constitutional government system.
Yes.
That, to me, would be a breach of the social contract right there, because the government was supposed to protect. You basically offered a particular type of protection, and then you changed it. We had a Cadillac version, and they gave us a Volkswagen.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is that the interesting thing about the public duties doctrine, it does have some provisos in there. It says the government does have a duty to protect when a person such as a prisoner is in custody. So there's a small band of obligation on the government to protect. But the interesting thing is, let's take Jeffrey Epstein. The Epstein family could come back now and say, well, he died in prison. That's one of those cases where he was supposed to be protected by the government. So they could probably sue the state for $1 billion or something because Jeffrey Epstein wasn't protected, while the rest of us have no protection. It's really amazing. The last thing I want to say, I talked to Steve Elkins. I brought this up, but when we talk about the police, it really comes down to what are the police going to be used for? I know Antifa and BLM says, well, the police are being mean to the black people and so forth, but there is another concern. If the police are forcefully going to be used to protect the bad courts, what happens when the police are forcefully going to protect the unconstitutional Federal Reserve monetary system? The police are forcefully protecting agencies such as CDC, NIH, Anthony Fauci, and George Soros dictates. If the police is going to forcefully protect these types of things, do we really want to fund the government? As far as that goes, I asked Ralph Winterroot, do we want to fund a corrupt? Ralph said the government is corrupt and illegitimate. I brought him out to say that. And then I said, well, why are we funding a corrupt, illegitimate government? He said it was a stupid question.
Well,
really
I disagree. I think it's a very, very good question.
Sorry?
I think it's a good question. Anyway, listen, Mitchell, I hate to do this to you, but we're pretty much at the end of the show. The music is going to be playing here, and thank you for the phone call. Stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I'm sure he's going to have lots of interesting things to share with you. Please spread the word of Republic Broadcasting. Spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. It is very important right now. We'll be back on Monday. Have a good weekend, and aloha, America.